Hello and welcome to another episode of ¿Qué pasa, Hialeah? Hi, my name is Dr. Tony Cruz. I'm the campus president here at the Hialeah campus of Miami-Dade College. And today we have a very special guest with us, a South Florida icon, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show today, Ileana. Again, you're a legend here in Miami-Dade County and Florida. You spent almost 3 decades in the U.S. Congress, one of the senior members of Congress for many years. And I know that you were in the House here, in the Senate in Florida before, and but also an educator as well. So many things, and we have a lot to talk about. So again, welcome to the show. It's a privilege to have you here today with us.
Well, Tony, I want to say thank you to you for having me on the show. Also, for giving me this most awesome t shirt that I wear with pride. I am MDC Hialeah. Congratulations on being the president of a great campus
Thank
of
you.
Miami Dade College. And for me, Miami Dade College has a very important spot in my heart. I graduated from Miami Dade College South Campus, the
Mhm.
Kendall campus,
Yes.
and I think that uh, my dad also went there, and my brother did as well.
Wow.
When my
Great.
father went there, it was called Miami Dade Junior College. When
Right.
I was there, my diploma says Miami Dade Community College.
Mhm.
Now it's a 4-year institution, Miami Dade College. It's just incredible. But I loved my years at Miami Dade College South Campus. I mean Kendall campus,
Mhm.
and I've been in your campus quite a lot. Hialeah, I did not go to Hialeah, but I got 4 T-shirts from you. So
All right. Well, we really appreciate that support and you wearing the T-shirt and representing the college, the community. It's really, really great. I just wanted, to ask you a few questions, and so, like I know that everyone knows who you are, but I think it's great for those of you that are watching to get to know you a little bit better. And I was thinking about some questions to ask you. One of them was, can you tell us a little bit about your youth, growing up in South Florida, your educational background, and maybe your earlier career before you got into politics and became, and got so involved in Congress and things like that.
well, thank you for the opportunity because it is right to refresh people's memories because first of all, we have a very um, young community. Some
Mhm.
people have just come from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Colombia, from Israel. They come from all over, and maybe
Sure.
they just got here. So even though I was in Congress for almost 30 years and 7 years in Tallahassee in the Florida State Legislature,
Hmm.
many people might not know who I am, but they've given me this great honor of representing our community for so long,
Yes.
and it really was the greatest honor of my life. But I did not start out as a politician. You know,
Hmm.
when I was at Miami Dade College, if you had asked me, "Do you see yourself in Congress?" I would say, "¿Qué?
Hmm.
Yo en el Congreso? What are you talking about?"
Right.
I was never involved in politics as when I was growing up in student government or student council. And I think it's wonderful when young
Mm.
people are involved. But
Yes.
uh, I was born in Cuba, came to the United States when I was 8 years old,
Hmm.
and my parents were my greatest role models. I saw my dad, who already had a degree from the University of Havana,
Hmm.
come to Miami Dade, uh, then graduated with a bachelor's from the University of Miami. And while working 2 full-time jobs, my
Wow.
parents were incredible people.
Wow.
And my mom worked at a Miami Beach hotel,
Hmm.
and she would put out the desserts in the cafeteria for the snowbirds who would come down to
Sure.
Miami for the season, and so they were incredible role models. She would take a couple of buses to go from Little Havana, where I grew up, to
Mm.
Miami Beach. So my brother and I didn't really have much of an excuse to say, "Oh, we're too tired. We're not going to do
Right.
homework. We can't do chores." Because my parents were really incredible people. So even though I didn't grow up in a political background in the sense of running for office, I
Hmm.
did grow up in somehow a political environment because my parents were very much active in the fight against Castro in the fight
Right.
for freedom and democracy for my
Sure.
native homeland of Cuba. So we would talk about human rights and elections and multi-party systems and the rule of law and independent press. So I didn't grow up politically in terms of running for office, but I did grow up with human rights being part of our language. So,
Definitely.
Miami is my hometown. It's where I grew up. I went to Southside Elementary in Little Havana, and like all Cubans did. Then we moved to Westchester,
Wait,
and
check that.
then I went to West Miami
Yeah.
Junior High, and then
Hmm.
Southwest Miami High School, Miami-Dade College, FIU, where I have my bachelor's and my master's, and
Hmm.
then I got my doctorate in education at the
Yes.
University of Miami. Go Canes! So
Yeah.
I love Florida International University. I love Miami-Dade College, and I love the University of Miami. And what I wanted to do was to become a teacher, and I achieved that goal. I was a Florida certified teacher in elementary school, and in journalism and English and all kinds of subjects. And I loved it. And that's all that I thought, wow, becoming a Florida certified teacher doesn't get any better than that. And then my parents and we started an elementary school in Hialeah
Yeah.
in 90 West 11th Street, very South Hialeah. And I
Hmm.
had that for about 8 years. But then I got elected to the state house, and it was just too difficult to. And I met my husband there in Tallahassee, and he was a state representative as well.
Hmm.
And so it was just too difficult to have your marriage and children coming up and then having a school. So I sold the school. It's a Lincoln Marti school now in South
Hmm.
Hialeah. But education is in my blood. But I never thought that I would end up in Congress. I was not a politician at all.
Right.
So life has a lot of takes a lot of funny turns, and I
Sure.
always tell people, be prepared for whatever, and
Yes.
shut any doors, because you might end up doing something you never thought you would do in your life.
Definitely, and you're true ambassador of education because obviously you've lived it, right?
Yeah,
And your own
in my
trek
blood.
through your journey through all those degrees and education, plus being an educator. So that's a great thing that you've
Thank
contributed,
you, Tony.
to our society and to our community. You had a very storied trajectory of your own in Congress. You were, like I said, almost you said 3 decades
Yeah.
in Congress, U.S. Congress. And so that's a lot. I mean, it's a long time and a lot of things that are accomplished during that time. And I know you've always been a defender of freedom and anti-communist and done a lot of things to support the
Yeah.
community here. People have come here from all places, right? Seeking freedom from a lot of Latin American countries that have been overthrown over the years by dictators. Um, Give us something that I know you've probably done many things that you're proud of, but what do you think is your most your the one accomplishment that you'd like to talk about today?
Well, that's a great question. I would say, first of all, in my time as a state legislator, my proudest achievement was that I co founded the Florida prepaid tuition program
Wow, that's
along with
big.
Curtis Peterson, state senator from the Lakeland area. He's passed away a long time ago. But when we created it, Tony, we never thought it would be as successful as it has been now.
Hmm.
We're very proud of that.
Yes.
More than 1 million young people, including our 7 grandchildren, and the eighth
Hmm.
one coming in September, are part of the Florida prepaid tuition program. And then in Congress, I would say passing immigration reform bills. We have a very wonderful immigration community here,
Hmm.
immigrant community, and we worked on temporary protected status for Haitians, for
Hmm.
Venezuelans. I passed the NICA Act to get tougher sanctions against Daniel Ortega and
Sure.
more freedom to the people of Nicaragua, and
Mhm.
also the Helms-Burton legislation, which I did with Lincoln Diaz-Balart and Bob Menendez and Bob Torricelli, such good
Hmm.
people, and that's putting a lot of sanctions on the Castro regime and giving more freedom, hopefully, to the Cuban people.
Yes.
So I was always on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and foreign affairs is part of my DNA, and
Yes.
I love serving the people. So constituent work is also something I was very proud of, Tony.
Right.
We help people with social security cases, immigration cases, passports, you name it, and helping people was what I love the most.
Well, all that is very impressive. It's like, and both of my kids use the Florida prepaid and both college
Yeah.
graduates, so that's a really great thing. and all these, I guess, opportunities that we've had over the years to help immigrants come to this country and then again fight for their freedom in their own homeland. So
You bet.
thank you for being that steward
Been a labor of love.
been really great. And so those are great accomplishments. Obviously, anybody that's been in public office would love to tout those accomplishments. But I think it's also tough. It's a tough job at times. What do you think was the most difficult decision or issue that maybe you had to face as a legislator over the course of those years?
An excellent question. Tony, I would say that every time I had to vote to send our men and women in uniform overseas to fight a war,
Hmm.
uh, that those were tough votes. I
Yeah.
always felt good about the way I voted, and in fact, my stepson and daughter-in-law were Marine officers.
Mhm.
My daughter-in-law served in Iraq and Afghanistan. My stepson served in Iraq. They served together. It was the
Yes.
first husband and wife team, and
Wow.
they flew F-18 Hornets and dropped bombs and did a lot of good work. But I always prayed a lot before I cast those votes
Hmm.
because they're tough votes. So I did it many times, in the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War.
Yeah.
When you make that commitment to send our best and brightest uh, into harm's way, it's a tough vote, even if you agree with the mission. So I would
Yeah.
say that every time I had to cast that vote, it was a tough vote.
Yes. I can understand that. A lot is heavy heart sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the things that those tough decisions have to be made. So, um, in the course of your life, you've probably had many people, and you had mentioned your father being somebody you admired a great deal, and maybe that's the person you admire the most. Who would you say is the person you admire the most, and how they impacted your life?
Well, I would say that in terms of politics, somebody like Jean Kirkpatrick. I know
Mhm.
the young people listening to us that don't even know who
Yeah.
that is, but she was an intellectual giant who
Yes.
believed very much in favor of democracy and freedom and human
Mhm.
rights. She helped the Cuban community very much. She was our ambassador in the United Nations, and
Mhm.
she spoke. Boy, when she spoke with great authority about
Yes.
American principles of freedom. So she's always been, she's passed away a long time ago, someone I admired. Margaret Thatcher, I never got to know her, but she was the British Prime Minister and, an iron lady. She
Mhm.
really had a great relationship with President Ronald Reagan, someone I respected as well.
Mhm.
And so he's another hero of mine.
Mhm.
And also, I'm a Republican, but I work in a very bipartisan manner.
Mhm.
Abraham Lincoln is a standout American hero,
Sure.
and the Civil War. He went through really tough times, and he brought our country together. So he's a hero of mine as well. And I would say Teddy Roosevelt, because he was a Republican president, but he was a conservationist. He believed in protecting the environment, and I
Mhm.
hope that as Republicans we get back to that legacy of protecting the environment. And I
Mhm.
hope we get back to being normal Republicans instead of somebody out in the fringes.
Yes. Well, all those people you mentioned are definitely role models for anyone. And like you said,
Good.
some people may not remember some of those individuals, but definitely I remember all those individuals and the impact that they've had in our
Well,
society.
you're a young man, but an old soul, if you
I
know what
am. I
I'm
remember all those people. Even as a little kid, I used to watch a lot of things on television. A lot of political things
saying.
that
Good for
probably no
you.
kid would was watching when they were 8 or 9.
And you know what, Tony? You can learn from anybody. It doesn't have to be somebody with whom you agree. It
Right.
could be a different philosophy and a different party, but you could. Everybody's got an interesting story,
Yes.
and if you're open to what you can learn from them,
Hmm.
it'll stand you well. For example, I served with a real hero of mine, John Lewis. John Lewis was a member of Congress from Atlanta,
Yes.
Georgia. He passed away not too long ago.
Yeah.
This man walked with Martin Luther King,
Hmm.
an amazing person, and he had his face and his head smashed
Hmm.
by segregationists, by racists,
Right.
and he was always proud of his service, but always happy and hopeful. And
Yes,
you can learn a lot of lessons from everyday heroes.
definitely. I agree with you. So, as really my last question for you is, what words of wisdom do you have for our college students today? And our college students, again, range in age, right? We have individuals that are coming here when, we have some dual enrollment students that come here when they're in high school. We have students that come here right out of high school at 18, but we also have students that are 35, 40, 45 and trying
I
to,
know that.
trying to continue with their education, making sure that they have more opportunities. So what words of wisdom do you have for our students?
I would say to them, be open to new experiences. Don't say no, because you never know what that opportunity will lead to something else and will lead to something else. And here, you never know where you're going to end up. I never thought I'd be a member of Congress. I didn't even know really what a member of Congress did. And
Right,
here I was one for so many years. So be open to new experiences. Don't say no unless it's something illegal. Do say no to those. But
right.
and that you can learn from everyday people. You can learn from your cleaning lady, your pool man, the bank teller, or a CEO of a major corporation. Don't think you have to be a big shot to give words of wisdom. And also, Tony, my last bit of advice
Yes.
is practice kindness. You never know what a difficult situation someone in front of you is confronting, and maybe they didn't answer you in a very good way and it wasn't very respectful, but you don't know what that person has been through. So
Yes.
practice kindness, and always practice the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. I like it when somebody's nice to me, and I try to
Yes.
be nice to everybody. But if they're not nice, maybe there's something that was bugging them that day. Don't judge so harshly, because you're going to be judged as well.
Sure.
So be kind and be patient.
Well, those are great words of wisdom. And again, thank you so much, Ileana, for joining us today on Que
Tony,
Pasa
te quiero
Hialeah.
tanto. Estoy tan orgullosa de todo lo que estás haciendo in the Hialeah campus. And I love Miami-Dade College Hialeah. Yeah, baby.
Gracias, Ileana. And again, thank you all for joining us today on this episode of Que Pasa Hialeah. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Que Pasa Hialeah.